Well, good morning. This is the Yes California Calexit Congress, where we have the discussion about what is the future of California and what level of independence it should be. Lots to discuss today, but first, okay, I need 1 second to just find it. Sorry, it's a little bit, okay, Antelope Valley. 1 second, sorry. Of course not. Let's go to Google. Antelope homeless candidates. There you go. So we've been making a lot of success. Let me find that email. Sorry, I need another second. Apologize for the technical difficulties. It'll be worth it. Here we go. Okay. So I'm going to do a share screen. There was a San Diego Union Tribune poll that came out recently ranking all the candidates. Now, Larry Elder was ranked at the top, Kevin Pathrath, John Cox, Kevin Faulkner, but something interesting happened. Almost all of the rest of the candidates participated in the Yes California debates. So every candidate who basically made any sort of ranking on the polling participated in our debates. And they did better than the candidates who refused. So here's Kevin Kiley, he refused. 4 other candidates ranked better than him. Here's Armando Mando Perez Sarato, and 3 other candidates did better than him. Now, yes, here's these 4 candidates, and they did better than everybody, and they did not participate in the debates. However, here's the thing. Larry Elder, Kevin Pathrath, John Cox, and Kevin Faulkner are millionaires. So if you're not a millionaire, able to throw millions at your own race, participating in the Yes California recall candidate debates helped you show and helped you more than candidates who refused. That's out this week. Very pleased to be able to definitively show that participation in the Yes California debates helped candidates rise up and did not hurt them, and that 2/3 of all the candidates who are showing who were not millionaires were part of our debates. So a lot of people may say, you know, associating with secessionists or people like that is bad for the image. Apparently not. This chart shows that it was good for the image and helped everybody out. Let's take another look here at another article. So Yes California was in the news. Antelope Valley Press, Governor Hochul's visiting Lancaster today. 10, possibly 11 of the 46 candidates on the ballot for office will be here in Lancaster to talk about homelessness. The event happened, and we also broadcast it. And there it is. Yes California hosted 9 debates with these candidates. Yes California, an organization that promotes Calexit, is hosting this event. So we were in the news as the only group to host a live physical event with 10 candidates. That's more than anyone else. I think we had 7 show up the day of, more than anyone else at any of the televised debates. And we got in the news for working with candidates and hosting this. And this was the only time candidates met homeless people. Now, interestingly enough, Larry Elder was in Lancaster the exact same day that we held this event. Our event got in the news. So we knew Larry Elder knew about our event because he was in the same city at the same time and could have gone to this event, and he was in the news. And one of the candidates who participated in our event went to his event and crashed it. So what did Larry Elder do a few days later? Held his own event where he met the homeless. What a random chance coincidence that after Larry Elder was not able to go to our homeless event, he held his own Meet the Homeless event when he had decided to do nothing of the kind during the previous 2 months of him running for candidacy. Just saying. You add these things up, it means we're making impacts, we're reaching in with politicians, and we're getting results. I want to show something else here that I'm very, very proud of. So recently, Yes California interviewed 9 of the qualified candidates for office and talked with them about secession. Yes, we were actually able to get all of these candidates: James Hannick, Heather Collins, Chauncey Killens, Daniel Mercuri, Daniel Watts, Holly Beatty, Diego Martinez, David Hilberg, and John Drake. All of these candidates, about 9, who are going to be in the election, actually discussed Calexit and secession. And so we have a variety of case studies from 9 different people around California talking about their thoughts on secession and what they like, what they don't like, what they could live with. These are great data. This is filled data. And it also shows our reach. So we're in the news, hosting events with multiple candidates. We've actually got multiple candidates to talk about Calexit, and the candidates that participated with the secession organization polled better than those who did not. Wild, wild, wild success of us working with candidates and reaching out. And all of this is because we're going to be doing this. One second. So here's 2022 consulting. Let me make sure that's showing. This is the project we're working on. We are going to start reaching out to anybody running for office in 2022 and saying that if you are willing to publicly back the right of self-determination, meaning the right that Californians have to discuss and vote for their future and more independence, at whatever degree you're comfortable with. Maybe that's just, I want immigration law here. Maybe that's just full-blown secession. Maybe it's turning into territory status. Maybe it's just ignoring federal law and doing our own thing, but not ever technically saying that's what we're doing, as some of the candidates suggested. And we're going to provide translation services, policy review, campaign emails for mass emails, campaign website design, Twitter design. Fuji can do political treasury work and workshops and events. Also will help work out their bio and how they want to represent themselves and the headshots. So we're going to take our ability to have promoted 10 candidates and get in the news, and our ability to interview all these candidates, and our ability to promote candidates, and we're going to reach out to anybody running for office anywhere in California in 2022, as long as they're willing to say that Californians have the right of self-determination. Our plan is that by midterms, or the election in 2022, we think Republicans are going to sweep back in. We think that given that Republicans are playing a lot of games, denying the right to vote to minorities, that it'll be a contested result, and that many liberals will think that it was a fake result. So we think Republicans are going to win in 2022. They'll take back control of the House. Californians are going to really be upset because they view the Republican Party as now permanently tied to Trump. They thought Trump being removed from office was a rejection of Trumpism. Trump backers getting back into office and recontrolling the Congress while associating themselves with Trump will be taken as a refutation of that narrative by Californians. So they're like, I thought we got rid of Trump, now he's back in. All his folks are all back in. I'm so upset. And then on top of that, they're going to say, and this election was rigged. Right, because Republicans are doing all sorts of limiting the vote measures now in like multiple states, and Californians are well aware of that. So it's going to be another election like 2016, where Trump philosophy gets into play, and California is suspected of being a rigged election. We saw how well that worked out here last time. We expect Californians to be vociferously vicious. And we want to have multiple candidates saying, I back the right to have a conversation about independence from the United States, to whatever degree you're comfortable with. So in 2016, we never had that. We got massively popular with Calexit, but we had no political stance. We had no politicians. We want to go into 2022 when we think there's going to be another outgrowth of Calexit, but with politicians who are running across California and can articulate that this is an okay conversation for us to have. Basically, we're planning on 2016 again, but staging ourselves to be ready to capitalize on it. Any questions about any of that from anyone, or you in the audience? You can post comments. Okay.
Well, I would say my only comment is that I totally agree with that. I have seen Democrat Party posts and stuff going around for a little bit, acknowledging the fact that they may potentially be in trouble in the midterms unless certain things work out. Now, keep in mind, this is from the Democrats. Being a Green, I have no problem acknowledging. They usually don't acknowledge a problem unless it's so bad that they know they are going to have to acknowledge it at one point or another. And then when they acknowledge it, they try and downplay it. Sounds pretty much like what just went on. So, they are probably in some serious trouble because, let's face it, given the recent polls and figures that have been coming out through the California recall, I don't know if anyone noticed, but ballots are issued out based on registered voters. So if you're a registered voter, boom, a ballot is sent out to you. We've got about 21 million or so, right? Now, of those ballots, yes, the majority are in the blue party. However, the second largest group is not actually the red party, which stands at about 24.8%, I think it was last time I looked, which is nearly a quarter of California's voters Republican, right? That's why I'm always saying you can't just readily discount someone just on what party they align with. The second largest group in California is actually independent and other. So that kind of tells you, you know, when Bernie went blue, all of a sudden California just overwhelmingly turns out and votes for Bernie, enough so that they had to actually keep it quiet for several years. So like 3 years they waited to publish those numbers that they normally put out right like after they're done tallying all the votes. And no one, you know me, Super Ferret, no one could really find it because it wasn't being put out there until all of a sudden elections were done and Bernie wasn't in the race and no one had to worry about, are people going to vote for Bernie instead of our guy? So the heart of California really isn't attached to the blue party through and through. That's the point I'm trying to make there. And of the number of ballots returned in proportion to the ones sent out to each of those demographics, obviously the Republican side, though the smallest, has the largest return rate. But the second largest return rate is the independent and other group. The one with the largest amount of ballots sent out was actually, as of, I believe that was 48 hours ago, the least amount returned.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I want to point out that, so homework for everybody is, we are going to be defining what self-determination means, and we need to keep it short and sweet, and it needs to be safe, as Cassandra pointed out, and as Fuji did. You know, Fuji got in here, joined Yes California because he saw the recall debate. Same thing with Cassandra; they were impressed, and then both of them kind of said, led by Fuji, that we need to modify the messaging. It's saying, you know, you have to be for full-blown secession automatically. That's the only thing we're talking about. Is a bit too much, and we need to leave other options for people. and that got whittled down to the right of self-determination. So do you believe that the people of California have the right to have a discussion and to vote and to push for more independence from the federal government, period? And however you see that. And if you're willing to say that, you get to be in. And we will promote you and provide these services, but you're going to be publicly saying that. And we'll do that leading up to 2022. We still need help in making the phrasing of self-determination the safest possible. So what is the way that we get people to say yes and not have them be scared or bite their nails and stuff like that? And I'm asking everybody.
I think what we agreed upon is avoiding sovereign. I think we agree upon autonomous choice, or is that even that problematic?
We went with. So far, we have gone with. Oops, sorry. 1 second. We have gone away from sovereign choice because that lines up with the sovereign citizens movement. I think we went away from autonomous choice because people don't know how to spell autonomous and they don't know what it means. And we went to self-determination because people seem to be able to get that. They recognize it's in the United Nations. It has somewhat of a positive feel, and it's something people can pronounce and they understand the concept, and it doesn't have the word sovereignty in it. That's roughly where we're at. Basically, long story short, we need people to agree to some term that says, hey, it's okay for Californians to be thinking about more independence from the federal government. Maybe that means ignoring federal rules occasionally. Maybe that means taking over federal authority issues like climate change and stem cell. Maybe that means becoming a territory like Puerto Rico. Maybe that means full-blown secession, but we have the right in a democracy to have these discussions about independence. And if a majority of the voters choose a path, I, as an elected official, will follow the will of the voters. So we've said, in a democracy, is it okay to have these discussions? And most politicians have to say yes. And we said, if the voters choose to do this through a legal, peaceful vote, would you follow it? Most of them say yes. So whatever the best way to frame that is.
Yeah, and if I may real quick point out that we've been using self-determination through the Calexit movement for a while with great effect. And
sorry,
a commercial play.
Sorry,
it's all good. The rule of law in the United States of America is that first and foremost, any treaties and trade deals they come first. That is the first and highest tier of law. Then come the sacred founding documents, such as the Declaration of Independence, that beloved Constitution, the Bill of Rights, right? Then come all the others that we know of, right? So ultimately, the United States has a legal structure that says there is an authority we look to that is higher than our own. And that is whatever agreements we make with other countries and whatever treaties we have, like based on, organizations such as the United Nations. And so the entrance charter to join the United Nations, a nation must sign the entrance charter, which means they agree to everything in there. And that's where self-determination, the right to self-determination, is all laid out. And guess what? The United States of America is part of the United Nations, signed that treaty.
okay. Self-determination.
Yeah.
We need to figure out a way to make it safe. Robert, does that make sense, roughly, the goal here that if we need to talk about puppy dog tails, what is it that we say to get the most human support?
Self-determination is perfect because I don't think it would offend anyone, and it's also open. It's open-ended. It's not set in stone like autonomous choice would be.
So I'm asking everybody to start, and it's not going to be overnight, but I'm asking everybody to start watching all these interviews. Not the whole thing, just the Calexit part. So the Calexit part's usually like the last third. Not the whole thing, that's them talking about their campaign. And then the last third, last half is the discussion of Calexit. As we're trying to figure out what's the way to frame this idea so that we get candidates to sign on to it, we should look at candidates and how they thought about it. So we have nine people from around California who expressed how they felt about the idea, the pitfalls, the things they want to make sure were addressed. And we have good data. So we need to look at this data to develop how to frame this in the best way possible so that we can get as many people going into the 2022 election. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go to now that we know that, the big thing is that the recall election is coming to an end this Tuesday. So we've milked it for everything we could. We did lots of debates, met lots of candidates. We're parlaying that and leveraging the resources that we've made and the connections to get even bigger so that we have even more contacts going into 2022. But it's coming to an end, and while we're going to be focusing on the political party, the apolitical party, we need other projects. So be thinking about big things that Yes California could do now that we have a lot more free time. One of them was the non-fungible token. I'm still needing someone to take on that project. Basically, it was a coin, crypto coin that has the Yes California logo on it. If anybody wants to take on the non-fungible token project, contact me and I will hand it over.
I thought DeWonk was doing that.
DeWonk needs someone to work with, and until he gets people here on the ground to work with him to make it happen, because he can't make it happen in India. He's blocked from all the internet pages he needs to access. So we need someone who can access those pages outside of India in California who will walk with him all the way through. So if somebody's willing to do that, oh, that's spelled wrong. Non-fungible. So that project is just sitting in the water going nowhere. I don't know what to do, and I'm not wasting any more time on it. So somebody wants to take it over, please jump on in, contact me. You'll need to work with DeWonk and figure out how to get the access to the computer programs. I think there are various apps, and actually get them to work. I tried, couldn't get them to work. So I'm moving on. Please jump in. Other big ideas. Does anybody have ideas on projects that Calexit could do? I really want to get back into, I understand we got a little bit distracted on the recall election, and that's my responsibility. There was a lot of opportunity there, and we jumped in and took it. But now that the recall is coming down, what are the next projects that we could do to really promote discussion of Calexit? Our goal here is to promote the idea that people need to be having a discussion about this. How do we do that? Any ideas for projects?
I believe you and I were recently discussing something. Obviously, it cannot happen under the current pandemic constraints, yada, yada, yada. And you know me, I don't usually say the yada, yada, just trying to, gloss over some of that iffy stuff. That being said, years ago, when Calexit had hit that, 34, 38% mark for support, we were discussing ways to try to get the message out there even more and kind of, educate people on the facts of California. We never did the event, and we took other methods, other routes, which have also been effective. Most everyone knows now we are the 5th largest agricultural entity in the world, the 5th largest economy, and the 3rd largest agricultural entity of the world. the largest agricultural entity of the United States by a long shot. These nice little fun facts are now regular talking points that, you know, even mainstream media folks and politicians know of and will occasionally say. The idea that I had presented to the board back then, like 5 years ago, was that the biggest cities, the big cities that have, you know, popular safe nightclubs, right? Most of California has a nightlife scene. To hold an event, a California night event, where we basically deck the place out with everything California that we can find. We have DJs that, you know, play stuff that was either written about California or made by Californians or here in California. Maybe they're, you know, they're artists who are from other parts of the world who come here. So pretty much just, you know, California pride, and have all sorts of, you know, pamphlets and flyers that people, it's optional, you can take it, that just have all of the, you know, pertinent facts. And, you know, kind of like some of the stuff could be like what you were bringing up in the interview with Professor Henning last night, with the 5 examples that you very quickly named off very professionally.
Thank
5
you.
examples of the Supreme Court and how they have very recently done 5 very huge things that the majority of California voters do not agree with.
Yeah. That's why we need to study these people. We need to study how they argued with me. We need to study what worked with them, and we need to take that knowledge and redefine how to sell Calexit through the topic of self-determination, making it safer.
So if I may, modern reworking. I know it was only 5 years ago that the idea came up, but it was nightclubs and nightlife, yada yada. Obviously, that's not really doable right now. However, somewhere where people want to go that is a large space, I don't know, maybe something like a beach. Nice, large, open space place where pop-up tents can be put up, and, you know, maybe a permit if, you know, if it's, I know some municipalities do not allow for permitted events even on their beach. And, you know, that's, hey, it's municipal power. The ones that do, however, we might be able to set up a daytime safe for, you know, current time, spread out, socially distanced, yet not emotionally distant, interactive, fun, you know, educational get-together that just focuses on California, California pride, California love, and, you know, maybe it could even turn out to be a, you know, breath of fresh air for a lot of people who have been itching to get out and about and just see things. Just, you know, we all want that magic wand, right? Just bibbity bobbity boop it away.
Okay. All right. Good idea. So some sort of event where we just celebrate California pride, basically, right? It to whatever allowance we can during COVID. And then we would try to do it in 2 big cities on the same night so that it was look how many Californians like this idea. They could get 2 events in 2 big cities on the exact same time. That's roughly what the concept is. Is that fair, Jason?
Yeah, except the rework is that it would probably be daytime and somewhere like large public parks, or like here in San Francisco, you've got Golden Gate Park, right? It's a very, very large park. And not just, it not being confined to nightclub scene actually gives the allowance for greater outreach. So, we could actually even hit everywhere, every city, every major locale, right? Have a regional and have them all pop off at the same time on the same day, right? This day at noon, everywhere in California. Check your local listings. And then, of course, we do the public service announcement. Be sure to, maintain health and safety measures, yada, yada, yada. Part of that's going to have to be included for our, our sake as an organization. But we could probably do something like that. The major cost would be materials printed, right, and permits.
I love it. Let's keep it rolling. Any other ideas? This is exactly the kind of stuff we should be thinking about. What are the ideas that we could do to promote California pride somehow amongst people? And we can have a discussion about California's future. All right, we'll just keep thinking. Let's go over a little bit of news. First off, I always like showing people new horror stories that point out why we have to go. So the Supreme Court of America recently refused to do anything about a new Texas law that basically stops abortions. And people are shocked at the Supreme Court and saying it's lawless behavior and basically politically motivated. So a lot of people are saying the Supreme Court is bad and broken and doesn't work like the way that it used to do, which is what we predicted here at Yes California, that America's failing and can't be fixed. We said that since 2019. They're also talking about how the Supreme Court is so politically motivated they may overturn the right to access an abortion straight up. So this is where we're at now, where the Supreme Court is seen as crazy and lawless, and it's an entire section of the federal government that doesn't work. We also noticed, for 4 years, people said that Trump, the executive branch, doesn't work. And statistically, Congress has the lowest support by the American people it's ever had since the 1970s. So Congress is still seen as basically a failure by the majority of Americans, like 67%. The majority still don't like Congress, even during the Trump years. We had a 4-year period where the executive branch was seen as a joke, and now we're entering the period where the Supreme Court is seen as a joke. So these are major pillars of the federal layer of infrastructure that are being called into question as largely inept. Everything we predicted in 2019. I'll post the link here for everybody. So a lot of people don't want to hear this, but it's happening. And I'll post it in private chat. This is going down. This is why we got a plan for a life raft.
This is reaffirmation for the fact that Trump is going to run. Even mainstream news is acknowledging it. He is going to run again, right? The Republican Party had been talked to in several different ways over a period of time of, please, if you just get away from that one guy, then you might be able to reinstill some faith, and less people will be wanting to riot and stuff. And they didn't. They doubled down on their guy, and their Supreme Court is now doing this stuff. The people are losing even more faith now. The midterms are seemingly going to be a disaster for the blue side, meaning victory for the red, leaving very little power in 2024 if the executive is retaken by the red side. It would leave very little power in any of the federal branches for the blues.
Yeah. So there's a lot going down, and it's getting worse. People thought that Biden was going to be elected. Republicans would learn their ways and stop backing Trump. And I think they called it a calming effect, and everybody would come back together. Total expletive failure. None of that happened. None of it. Still is polarized, still is backing Trump, still is divided, still is hateful. I mean,
And Biden is losing support. But being the incumbent, we can almost guarantee we know who the Democratic Party is going to run against Trump. The guy who barely scraped the win last time, who has since lost a lot of support.
Yep. Yeah. 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 Let's check out Frexit. So there's a new independence movement, or at least it just came on my radar. It's called Frexit, as in Brexit. Apparently it's picking up steam. It's the French now want out of the EU, like England. I asked Jason Wright to look into this to see if, yes, California should reach out to these people as we try to make colleagues with all peaceful legal independence movements. Jason, what did you find about Frexit, the idea that there's now a French movement for independence?
Yeah, well, it does seem to be based around the pursuit of peaceful legal processes. That much seems apparent. There is a little bit of a question about if this guy who's heading the whole thing is really such a good person. He has come out against non-EU immigration, in meaning, people who are not currently part of the EU coming in, citing terrorist concerns. And it comes off much the same way as when Donald Trump said, we can't let people from south of the border come here because they're all criminals of varying sorts.
Okay.
This guy also, he worked on the negotiations around Brexit. And as we know, he's French, and Brexit did not turn out the way that the UK had hoped, or at least the way that the British Parliament had hoped. That means this guy kind of helped to reaffirm the EU when that happened. But now he says, you know what, this is too much. He also, he had stated something about the French influence not being strong enough, and that they need to basically up their game and start to dominate the overwhelming German influence through the EU. As a Californian who follows all of this EU stuff closely, I actually have been under the impression that both France and Germany are kind of the two heads of the whole thing.
The European project, yeah.
Yeah, and
Sure.
that one cannot do it alone. They both together kind of hold it together. So ultimately, the implications for the entire Union of Europe, it's actually pretty huge. This should not really be taken as something light. Much like if California was to declare independence from America, there are some serious, heavy implications that are going to have ramifications for others, especially those left in that union.
So here's what Jason's talking about. Mr. Barnier previously caused a stir by calling for non-EU migration to be suspended for 5 years, citing the risk of terrorism. So that means no Arab Muslims coming into Europe because
Marcus, real quick, we're seeing the mirror screen.
Yeah, I understand. Thank you, Jason. Mr. Barnier previously caused a stir by calling for the non-EU migration to be suspended for 5 years, citing the risk of terrorism. That means basically all these Arab Muslims are coming in are bad, and let's seal up the borders. That's exactly what Trump was talking about. And this is what this is what Jason is pointing out, that in Britain, the supporters of Brexit saw him echoing the arguments that had been made to push the Brexit vote. And so Brexit was pushed partly by fear of immigrants from non-England and non-white people and non-Western Europeans coming in. And so here's Jason pointing out that this guy is basically making the same argument. So this is a independence movement that seems largely based upon xenophobia, possibly. Is that what we're concerned about, Jason? Is that how xenophobic based or fueled?
Well, yes and no. To be fair, I would say this one guy who's kind of the head of their thing has said some xenophobic stuff and seems to be kind of Trumpish, to put it bluntly. It does not mean their entire movement is based on that. I have known plenty of very fine French folk who, for one reason or another, never wanted to be part of any union. They're just very French, and much in the way that I'm very Californian, they're very French, and I think that's okay. I see no problem with that. It's that some people sometimes take their national identity thing a little bit overboard, and I think that this is the guy that's doing that. It's a shame for their movement that they've got this guy as kind of the head and face of the whole thing. I might say, as a political analysis person, right, that a movement like this, if it's actually serious and based in the right reasons, then maybe they would want to move away from someone like that. I think the French people are very smart when it comes to politics. I mean, ever since La Revolution, the people of France take it upon themselves, for the most part, it seems, to be very well educated on the law and the system, and they take voting very seriously. I also got to point out, though, Le Pen. There's polling showing Le Pen is polling almost neck and neck with Macron right now.
Yeah, let me jump in real quick. Here's an article from the UK, and so this is September 4th, and it backs up a lot of what you're saying. So obviously there's a guy saying, immigrants, and we don't like him, and that's the thing, but there's apparently the Frexit thing has come into a lot of publicity because European Union and President Emmanuel Macron has been savage for not securing early pre-orders of the Valneva vaccine after talks collapsed earlier this year on the grounds the French company had not fulfilled the conditions for marketing in Europe. But in a huge Brexit embarrassment for the bloc in France, the UK government has secured a total of 190 million Valneva doses, with the first 60 million of the 100 million doses set to continue in the first quarter next year. So what they're pointing out is that very recently, France couldn't get the doses it needed for COVID because of bureaucratic red tape it didn't do. So, oh, you didn't market well in the Europe, so you don't get your COVID-19 vaccines. So people get to die and fear death because you didn't meet some bureaucratic red tape. And then here's England, who just got out of the EU, and they got all the doses they needed because they didn't have to deal with that. And so here's a bunch of French people going, oh, so we're going to die and maybe die because we're part of the EU, and England got out and gets to save their people's lives? Yeah, I would be mad too. So
yeah, and that's why I had said that part of, if the movement is truly of the people and for the right reasons, then they should consider stepping away from someone who's maybe not the right person, and really find someone who is. And if you've got a movement that's for the right reason, right? But I have to say, being here in California, being a Californian, my opinion only means so much, and I am in no way trying to influence anything over there. I'm just stating some analysis.
yeah, so I'm directing the organizations to do more outreach. Let's reach out to Frexit. Let's find out what they're really about. Let's make contacts and confirm, because we're seeing different messages. One is a legitimate one of the people saying we're limited in how we can save our lives because of the EU. That's something I completely back. You don't get the rights to do what you need to for your people. Xenophobia, no. Is this one speaker? Is it the form of the movement? I'm not sure. Maybe he said something 5 years ago and he's evolved since then. Maybe he's not the main speaker. Maybe he claims to be the main speaker. Maybe the media claims him to be the main speaker so that they can trash the idea as xenophobic. We at Yes California have certainly seen where the media will take a little bit of facts and project it to be the whole thing so they can push a narrative on a group to destroy their movement. I'm not going to do that to another movement. So let's verify who they are and what they're about. I'm directing everyone in Yes California to please reach out to Frexit. Let's find out who they are, what their motivations are, and if they are in line, meaning peaceful and legal, which looks to be the case according to Jason's research. Let's find out if they're bigots. If they're not wedded to bigotry as part of their platform, I'd like to speak with them. If they have a couple bigots in their movement, well, I'm not going to blame them for that. The other assignment is please start looking at the Yes California YouTube channel and study how the candidates responded to the big question we asked so that we can reformat self-determination in the safest way possible. So those are the two big assignments, that one and this one. And that is most of what we have for today. Any other comments from anyone out there? Robert, Big Mike, anybody in YouTube land? Jason, anything we're missing should cover?
It's not on the Frexit point, but it's something that I've been thinking about here and there for a little bit. And it's, when people give counter argument to Calexit, when it comes to the rule of law, right? So we say Calexit. They say, no, that's illegal. That's unconstitutional. we point out rule of law, the few different methods we actually have of legally pursuing this. And then a lot of it comes down to, well, I just don't like it. Well, if you're in California, here's the irony of it. Are you ready? If you're in California right now, you are a part of the United States. That means the rule of law applies to you. If you don't like that we have the right to pursue self-determination because of the rule of law set by the United States of America, then guess what you have to do? You have to go independent from America so that you can control your own law. But guess what that is? That's called self-determination. Either way you look at it, like it or not. Self-determination. Calexit.
Nice. 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 Okay, I'm just notifying everybody this. I put this in the private chat. I am not endorsing this. I am not endorsing it. 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 So please don't call me going, are you endorsing this? No, we're not. What I'm pointing out is that here's a group that's going to have, they're filing an initiative on school choice, and they're having a webinar today. Today at 3 o'clock. Virtual meeting. You can go. I just gave you the link. I'm not endorsing this. The reason I'm suggesting, yes, California people go and participate is because they just filed an initiative. So they filed an initiative during COVID. We file initiatives. Maybe we could go and look at what they're doing and just learn from them. So for that reason alone, I am suggesting that we go and maybe check this out just to learn how they're filing initiative and how they're thinking about doing it. That's all.
Yeah, well, my understanding of what school choice is and is about is that children are... do you not want me to go into it?
I don't want to turn into the school choice channel. So very briefly, and then we'll move on.
It's actually more about desegregation.
Briefly, brother. No offense.
Yeah, so basically the way that the school system works is that you're assigned into a school based on where you live. Now, super wealthy communities are created, super poor communities that are way overpopulated, too densely packed, not well cared for by their municipal powers that be. They pop up as well. Now, you get this disparity between the communities next door to one another in their daily lives, their education, their quality of education, because one gets a lot of funding and the other doesn't. And now district lines and all that are usually drawn based on these communities and this socioeconomic divide, so that super wealthy people's children go to school with one another and not with impoverished people's children. School choice gives the choice of where your child is going to school to the parent. They can say, you know what? I want my kid to go to Tam Valley High, not East Richmond, municipal school or something, where they've got like cops everywhere and, the alarms and metal detectors and stuff, and kids get frisked.
I was under the impression that school choice meant vouchers for private education. Is this something totally different involving public education?
Well, it does, from my understanding, it does also have something to do with the ability to choose private education if you want. I mean, I went through lots of public schooling, and I had some private schooling. I was in a charter school at one point. I honestly, I think that every child is different. Every person is different. We all learn differently. What works for me might not necessarily work for you. And if charter school works for me, why can't I go to charter school? If public school works for me, why shouldn't I go to public school? And usually the only thing that holds up the decision to go to charter school is money. And the thing that holds up decision to go to public school is safety and, quality. And
Okay.
that's my understanding of it.
Yeah. Guys, thank you very much. I don't want to have a long discussion on school choice. Not what this forum is for. So with respect, thank you both. Appreciate it. Let's get back to assignments. We need to reach out to Frexit. And the big question, how do we make the idea of self-determination safe? I really am looking at all you guys to help us figure this out. This is the key point. How do we take the interviews that we did with 9 candidates, figure out what they're saying, and figure out how to find that magical potion, that Kool-Aid that everybody loves drinking, where they're willing to say, yes, Californians have the right to have a discussion about independence, as long as they're talking about legal, peaceful change. And yes, of course, California has the right to legally move towards more independence. How do we make that safe? How do we get people to back that in? How do we parlay our connections with politicians to get even more politicians? And how do we interpret what 9 different people told us is the right way to do this into finding that one perfect response? That is the number one assignment for all of us right at this moment. So,
well, if I may real quick, one thing that I'm noticing there is this group filed an initiative, and you pointed out that's something that we do. We file initiatives. We do that. What if we do our blue ribbon panel initiative again?
all right, there you go.
I mean, this group's able to do it during the current, pandemic times and constraints and whatnot. So there's our proof that it can be done.
So we would file an initiative to create the blue ribbon panel, basically recreating the CALMAN Commission. And, a lot of the candidates, Jason's right, were sympathetic to that, or they almost suggested that. They go, well, we really need more information. We really need more data to think about this. And at least 60% of them were pointing that out. And so it seemed to be like they were saying, you need to have that commission, that blue ribbon panel study. I will also point out that Nicholas Wildstar, when we hired him to get signatures for the last Calexit initiative, one of the ways he was able to sell it was to tell people it's not for secession, it's for studying the concept. So we can learn how we can keep federal tax money here. That particular phrase got people to sign. I didn't say secession. I said have the government study the topic of more independence so that we can keep more of our federal tax money here. That's literally what he said, and 80% of the people responded to that framing. I add that up to what Jason's saying, and to what 60% of the candidates suggested in the interviews over the last 48 hours, where they were saying it's a complex issue and I would feel more comfortable with it with more data. It seems to be suggesting that the idea of saying not secession, but investigating it officially through proper channels is the way to get a lot of people to discuss this idea and think about it. We're discussing it in a rational, coherent, logical manner. So I like Jason's idea. Thoughts, feelings, an initiative, blue ribbon panel?
I'm not trying to over push the whole get together on beaches and parks and whatnot,
Oh, no,
safely
that's a great
distance out, but I would just point out that if we had an initiative currently up and gathering signatures, that would be a great way to tie the two together, to utilize one to get the message out about the other and gather the signatures while you've got people out there at the parks and beaches having California Day.
That's pretty damn good, Jason. Merging two ideas together. Very well. Nice. Nice. That's clever. Okay, Robert, Mike, anyone in the internet land? Any comments? All right, then we're going to call it.
I do see a regular viewer of ours, Devil War, asking what might we do about bad cops?
Sure, we can discuss that for a few minutes briefly. What?
I have a quick and easy answer for it. It all
Please.
comes down to independence. If we're independent, we can restructure our legal system, our judiciary system. We can restructure things, modernize it, make it current and up with the times, and have it include things where no longer will people who break the law be deemed as, immune from accountability. We could basically make it so that, hey, if, there are plenty of cops out there who are there to serve and protect, and they don't break laws. They're who we need. But the ones who do abuse authority and do intimidate and use violence, ones who really do commit criminal acts under the guise of badge and gun, those ones should be held accountable, just like a crooked politician who takes dirty bribes and, a judicial figure who acts not based on law, but based on political leaning, a warmonger CEO who becomes vice president and helps to ensure that an extra war is fought that makes him bazillions of dollars off of the taxpayer, no less. These sorts of things, they should not go unpunished. But I do know it's not all cops are bad, and I know when people talk about bad cops, that it's typical fear to think that people are saying all cops. And, I'm trying to make it very clear. As someone who suffered a great injustice not that long ago and was brutalized as a non-criminal, I still am able to say there are good cops and we need them. We need more of them. We need to replace the bad cops with more people who will be good cops.
Okay.
But we can only do that if we're independent, because America is not going to allow that. Because the American Police Officers Union is not going to allow that. They overwhelmingly backed Trump, and they were one of the largest support platforms under the Trump campaign. They also were the first ones to come out in support of him his first time campaigning. They are not going to allow that. They're going to push it as you're just trying to defund all of the police, which obviously, if you have laws, there needs to be enforcement. But that's also why I say, well, there are laws and there has to be enforcement. Otherwise, you get chaos and anarchy, which is why bad cops must be held accountable, just as well as corrupt officials.
Okay. Well, there you go. That's the answer. Really appreciate it. Any last minute comments from anybody? And please remember, check out Frexit. We want to make contacts with them. Let's look at a physical event in multiple cities. Physical distancing with masks, as Jason talked about. Let's explore the idea of an initiative on a blue ribbon panel, like the CALMAN Commission. Let's watch the YESCA YouTube channel to study how the candidates responded to the big questions we asked. And I'll make sure to get that out to everybody. Initiative on. Now it goes out. 1 second. Blue ribbon pan. Okay, then that's it. Thank you all for being here. We will be back. We'll have a meeting Tuesday at 7. That's Tuesday at 7 for the Political Party Commission. And we will be back Sunday at 11.